Hello everyone, and welcome to Earth Archives. In the autumn of 1801, inside an ancient church in Tuscany, Italy, candlelight flickered as a solemn papal mass was underway. However, at the conclusion of this religious ceremony, an unexpected musical revolution was unveiled. 19-year-old mysterious violin prodigy Niccolò Paganini rewrote the history of violin music with a 28-minute improvisation performed without sheet music. From a harsh childhood to losing his violin through gambling, from courtly honors to being dubbed the violinist from hell, Paganini was not only an extraordinarily skilled musical genius, but also a legendary figure who influenced countless musicians for generations to come. Today, let's step into the legendary life of this devil's violinist and experience the timeless charm of his music. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to catch more fascinating stories about classical music and history as soon as they arrive. In the autumn of 1801, inside an ancient church in the historic city of Tuscany, Italy, candle flames flickered and incense smoke curled upward as a solemn papal mass was being celebrated with great reverence. Nobles, clergy, and townspeople alike watched the altar quietly with devotion. The entire scene felt cut off from the world outside. Yet, no one expected that this seemingly by-the-book religious ceremony would culminate in an unexpected musical revolution. His name was Niccolò Paganini, a young violinist only 19 years old, tall and slender, with deep-set eyes and a mischievous yet confident expression. Originally, this mass had nothing to do with him. His name wasn't on the program at all. But a local official in Tuscany, said to be a devoted fan of Paganini, strongly recommended that he take the stage, insisting he perform a piece after the mass concluded. Everyone expected the young man to play a short 3 or 5-minute piece, just a brief appearance to please the guests. But when Paganini stepped up, it was as if possessed by a spirit. He performed an astonishing concerto that lasted a full 28 minutes. Imagine that ancient church in Tuscany, with towering stone pillars and a majestic dome, soft light filtering through stained glass windows and spilling onto the marble floor. The mass had just ended. The priest whispered a blessing, while nobles and townspeople prepared to leave, footsteps and murmurs blending together as the atmosphere gradually relaxed. At that moment, a slender young man stood up, wearing no clerical robes, no noble rings, holding only a gleaming violin in his hands. He was Paganini, 19 years old, a musical prodigy yet to be known by the world. He said nothing, simply gently resting the violin on his shoulder. Then the bow descended. The first note flowed like a babbling brook, echoing throughout the church, as if even the angels on the ceiling held their breath to listen. The music shifted, sometimes like morning birdsong, sometimes like a breeze whispering through the trees, then like distant thunder slowly approaching, before suddenly fading into a soft whisper. The people inside the church were astonished to realize this was no ordinary performance. It was a mysterious summons, a musical illusion. His fingers danced like fluttering spirits across the strings, mimicking birdsong, the howl of the wind, the drip of water, and even creating the illusion of galloping hooves and a maiden's whisper. The audience instinctively stopped in their tracks and turned back to their seats. Even the usually solemn priest slowly sat back down, his expression as if in a dream. For a full 28 minutes, he played without sheet music and without a single mistake. His memory was astonishing, and his expressiveness spoke louder than words. The once solemn church suddenly erupted into thunderous applause. People stood one after another, their eyes filled with wonder, admiration, and even a hint of unease. Could such a talent truly belong to this world? That night, Paganini's name echoed in the ears of every person in Tuscany, not because he had broken any rules, but because he had redefined solemnity through music. He was more than just a performer. He seemed like a messenger of some divine power, convincing people that true genius is something even the gods would pause to listen to. The story of Niccolò Paganini seemed destined to be different from ordinary people's from the very moment he was born. On October 27, 1782, he was born into a modest family in Genoa, Italy. His father, Antonio, worked as an agent at the port, managing business for shipowners, but deep down harbored a passion and ambition for music. Although he might never become a musician himself, he decided to make his son fulfill that dream. Paganini's musical journey didn't start with the violin. It began with the mandolin, a traditional Italian plucked string instrument. By the age of 5, he could play smooth melodies on its fingerboard. Recognizing his son's talent, his father immediately began a devil's training. After the mandolin came the guitar, and then the violin. From the very beginning, it wasn't about learning just for fun, but mastering the instrument to the highest level. Antonio was not a gentle father. He treated Paganini as an investment, believing that with enough harsh polishing, his son would eventually become a miracle in the world of music. Every day, he forced young Niccolò to practice the violin for over 10 hours, forbidding any laziness or outings to play. If a note was off or the rhythm faltered, his father would lash out with harsh words and sometimes even physical punishment. This kind of pressure was almost unbearable, an absolute hell for a child. Yet, it was precisely this intense and oppressive training that forged Paganini's astonishing skills later on. His fingers became so agile they seemed almost supernatural, and his memory so sharp it was, as if he could store entire scores in his mind. At the same time, his body grew increasingly frail, thin and gaunt, his pale face seeming to burn all his life force into the bow of his violin. Young Niccolò once said he couldn't imagine anyone stricter than his father. That might sound exaggerated, but for him, it was the truest reflection of his reality. From dawn till dusk, he practiced relentlessly. A single wrong note earned a scolding, and a moment's laziness meant punishment. His childhood held almost no games or friends, only the bow, the fingerboard, and his father's sharp gaze. Despite his frail body and pale complexion, his passion for music burned like a fierce fire. The more pressure he faced, the more determined he became. It was precisely this grueling training that allowed Paganini to carve out an astonishing and unprecedented path in the world of violin. His playing was not only fast, precise, and beautiful. It was so extraordinary it seemed almost unbelievable. He could make the violin imitate the chirping of birds, the meowing of cats, and even mimic the tones of flutes, trumpets, and horns, making it sound as if an entire orchestra was hidden within his single instrument. His bowing was skillful and versatile, his fingerwork lightning fast. Sometimes he would even deliberately break 1 or 2 strings and play an entire piece using just a single string, leaving audiences dumbfounded. Many almost believed he had made a pact with the devil. But Paganini's musical talent wasn't limited to the violin alone. He had a profound love for the guitar as well and achieved an exceptionally high level of mastery. He didn't just casually play. He composed numerous beautiful guitar pieces and even wrote works specifically for violin and guitar duets, allowing the two instruments to intertwine and converse within the music. He often played the guitar privately as a source of inspiration, even calling it the solace of his soul. The violin Paganini used was no ordinary instrument owned by any musician. It was crafted by the Guarneri family, Italy's premier violin-making dynasty. Their violins are revered as the diamonds of the music world, each seemingly alive with a clear and penetrating tone. Paganini held a deep affection for his violin, affectionately calling it Il Cannone, the cannon, a name full of power and playfulness, much like his own style on stage. However, the story of this precious violin is filled with drama. When Paganini was young, he lost the violin he originally owned due to gambling and was nearly plunged into despair. Just when he was at his wits' end, he met a kind-hearted merchant named Livorno on the streets of Livorno, Italy. Deeply moved by Paganini's talent, the merchant generously lent him a finely crafted violin. When Paganini played before him, the music flowed like a gentle stream, full of spirit. After the performance, the merchant refused to take the violin back and insisted on gifting it to Paganini, making it his most treasured companion for life. The 1801 church mass performance was only the beginning of Paganini's brilliant legend. As his fame quickly soared, he was soon appointed concertmaster of the theater in the Republic of Lucca, actively performing on the most prestigious musical stages of the time. Even more astonishingly, Napoleon's sister, the royal Princess Elizabeth, was captivated by the young violinist's talent. Not only did Elizabeth personally appoint him as the court's chief violinist, but she also unusually granted him the title of captain of the royal guard, a unique position that allowed him to move freely between the court and his concert tours. Paganini's diary doesn't just capture the glory of dazzling stages. It's also filled with amusing anecdotes and little embarrassing moments. For example, once during a concert in Livorno, just as he was about to step on stage, he accidentally stepped on a nail. The pain made him limp as he walked onto the stage, yet it didn't affect his focus or passion during the performance at all. This funny and resilient image of the virtuoso is hard to imagine unless you saw it with your own eyes. On another occasion, an even more dramatic scene unfolded under the flickering candlelight. Paganini's sheet music suddenly caught fire from a candle, causing chaos and laughter among the audience. But he just smiled gently and nimbly danced his fingers across the strings. As one string after another snapped, the audience's laughter turned into astonished applause. He completed the entire piece using only the remaining 3 strings. This improvisational skill not only saved a potentially embarrassing situation, but instantly electrified the atmosphere, bringing thunderous applause. This ability to adapt spontaneously and his extraordinary skill became Paganini's signature. At every performance, it was like he was playing a game of wits with fate. When a string broke, he would carry on with the rest, one by one, until sometimes he played the entire piece on just a single string. This breathtaking technique drove audiences wild, earning him the nickname, the magician of the violin. In 1813, at just 31 years old, Paganini made his sensational debut at Milan's Carcano Theater. Critics hailed him as the world's foremost violinist, a recognition not only of his extraordinary skill, but also of his captivating artistic presence. This performance marked the beginning of a new chapter in his life. In the following years, he swept through major Italian cities, giving 37 consecutive concerts, skyrocketing his fame and becoming the center of attention everywhere. Beyond the stage, Paganini formed friendships with music luminaries of the time, such as the opera master Rossini and the virtuoso violinist Bar. Their camaraderie fostered artistic exchange and broadened Paganini's musical horizons. Particularly notable was his near-overwhelming victory in a competition against the renowned French violinist Charles-Philippe Lafont, which solidified his position in the international music world. As his fame grew, Paganini's lifestyle became increasingly wild and unrestrained. The allure of fame and the desire for freedom gradually freed him from his earlier strict discipline and constraints. He began living a life of extravagance, indulging in heavy drinking, gambling, and mingling with various socialites, becoming a dazzling yet controversial figure in social circles. While this hedonistic lifestyle brought him fleeting pleasure and fame, it also sowed the seeds for the health problems and fluctuations in reputation that would trouble him later on. Paganini's private life was as spectacular as it was controversial. In 1814, just after turning 32, he faced a major scandal. He was arrested and imprisoned for 8 days following a dispute involving Angelina, the pregnant daughter of a tailor. The incident was wildly sensationalized by the public, and absurd rumors even spread accusing him of murder, casting a shadow over his reputation and marking a dark chapter in his life. Despite this, Paganini relied on the power of his music to overcome the stigma and continued to pursue his artistic dreams. As time went on, Paganini's romantic life grew more complicated and dramatic. He embarked on a passionate relationship with the famous singer Antonia Bianchi. After Bianchi became pregnant, she gave birth to their son, Achille. Although Paganini refused to marry her, this did not stop him from caring for and supporting his son. He maintained a unique relationship with Bianchi, both as a devoted father and a free-spirited artist. However, their love story was far from a fairy tale. Differences in personality and lifestyle gradually deepened their conflicts, ultimately leading to a breakup. These emotional ups and downs added rich layers to Paganini's life, revealing a more authentic and multifaceted man behind the dazzling public persona. Paganini's violin technique was truly extraordinary, far beyond the imagination of any violinist of his time. His tuning method was especially astonishing. While the four strings of a violin are normally tuned to standard pitches, Paganini often tuned each string a half step higher, and sometimes even raised them by a minor third when he wanted special effects. This tuning gave his violin a mysterious, almost hypnotic quality, as if the strings themselves held some magical power that captivated listeners' souls. Beyond his tuning, he invented a unique bowing technique. His bow would whip across the strings like a lash, striking them sharply to produce notes that were both rapid and rich in tone. This technique was not only incredibly difficult, but also visually spectacular, captivating audiences who watched in awe and responded with thunderous applause. His left-hand pizzicato was equally jaw-dropping. Even when strings broke, he could play entire pieces using only a single string. This level of mastery was almost magical and became his signature stage skill. Paganini was not only a musical genius, but also a man of complex character and eccentric temperament. His fame and fortune were a double-edged sword, bringing him countless accolades, but also envy and controversy. Public opinion often swirled turbulently around him, making his life full of ups and downs. He repeatedly found himself in trouble due to financial disputes and romantic scandals, nearly ruining his own future. This made his personality and his music alike, full of contradictions and intense tension. However, his artistic achievements remain indelible. Between 1817 and 1830, Paganini composed 6 violin concertos. These works were not only technically demanding, but also filled with passion and creativity, becoming classics in the history of violin music. Each concerto was like a magnificent musical adventure, showcasing his astonishing technique and unique musical language, and they remain essential repertoire for violinists to this day. In 1827, the Pope bestowed upon Paganini the Golden Spur Knighthood, honoring his outstanding contributions to music. This prestigious recognition not only affirmed his artistic accomplishments, but also symbolized his transformation from a controversial young musician into a revered maestro, respected by both the church and society. In 1828, Paganini embarked on his European concert tour, gaining fame from Austria and Germany all the way to Paris, France. Each of his appearances caused a sensation, akin to the star power of today's rock legends. At that time, he was tall and slender, with a pale complexion, deep-set eyes, and long black hair, exuding a mysterious and somewhat eerie aura. On stage, his exaggerated gestures and intense focus gave him an uncanny charm, making the audience feel as if they were witnessing some kind of mystical ritual. Because of this, he earned the nickname, the Devil's Violinist. This title was both a tribute to his extraordinary skills and a reflection of the awe and fear people felt toward his seemingly supernatural technique. Even more dramatically, rumors spread that he had made a pact with the devil, selling his soul to gain such inhuman mastery of the violin. Though these urban legends sound absurd, they truly captured the shock and impact Paganini's performances had on his audiences. Paganini's musical charisma not only captivated countless listeners, but also deeply influenced another genius later hailed as a piano virtuoso, Franz Liszt. In 1828, at a concert in Paris, the young Liszt was fortunate enough to witness Paganini's live performance. The scene remains vivid in memory. Despite having 3 broken strings on his violin, Paganini still managed to complete the entire concerto flawlessly, astonishing everyone and bringing the audience to their feet in wild applause. At that moment, Liszt's eyes shone with awe and inspiration. After returning home, he resolutely decided to dedicate himself to intense practice for 3 years, determined to become the Paganini of the piano. This admiration and passion ultimately fueled Liszt's creativity, leading to his masterpiece Grandes Etudes de Paganini, a pinnacle of piano technique inspired by Paganini's 24 Caprices. It was not only a tribute to Paganini, but also a profound artistic dialogue crossing the boundaries between instruments. This legendary story between idol and admirer has become one of the most touching chapters in the history of classical music. Paganini not only stunned his era with his miraculous violin skills, but also inspired countless musicians afterward to bravely pursue the pinnacle of technique and artistry, allowing his influence to transcend time and continue to shine. In 1834, Paganini's health rapidly deteriorated. After years of suffering from syphilis and throat tuberculosis, compounded by the limited medical treatments of the time, he was forced to undergo heavy doses of mercury and opium. These toxic treatments only worsened his condition, leaving his voice hoarse and his throat severely ulcerated. By 1839, he had even lost the ability to speak, becoming the awe-inspiring yet silent genius. Unable to express himself through music or speech, he could only communicate with the outside world through pen and paper. This helpless and lonely state marked the final chapter of his life. Despite his weakening body, Paganini never gave up composing music, persistently writing his scores by hand. He also ran a music publishing company and invested in a music academy in Paris, hoping to create more opportunities for the next generation of musicians. His unwavering passion and dedication to music meant that, even trapped in illness, he never abandoned his artistic dreams. However, illness ultimately claimed the life of this genius. On May 27, 1840, Paganini passed away peacefully in Nice, France, at the age of 57. At the end, he refused to receive the Catholic last rites and confession, saying he was not yet ready. This refusal was seen by the Church as defiance, sparking an even greater controversy after his death. Because Paganini declined the final sacraments, the Catholic Church at the time declared that he died outside the faith and firmly refused to allow him to be buried in consecrated ground. As a result, the great musical genius's body was treated as if cursed, and his family was forced to store his remains in a cold, damp cellar for a full 36 years, like a wandering spirit unable to find rest. It wasn't until 1876 that Paganini's son, Achille, tirelessly petitioned for his father's proper burial, even personally meeting Pope Pius IX. With the Pope's special permission, Paganini's remains were finally given a solemn burial at the Santa Maria degli Angeli Cemetery in Parma, Italy. This turbulent history not only testified to the family's dedication to honoring Paganini's legacy, but also deepened the mystique surrounding his enigmatic life. Especially combined with his mysterious and otherworldly playing style during his lifetime and his posthumous denial of burial, these events perfectly intertwined to fuel the enduring legend of his pact with the devil. Paganini composed countless works throughout his life, but none are as widely celebrated as his masterpiece, the 24 Caprices, Caprices Op. 1. This collection stands as the pinnacle of solo violin technique, with each piece seemingly daring the performer to take on its challenges. Lightning-fast scales, whip-like spiccato bowing, extremely difficult double stops, ethereal harmonics, and jaw-dropping left-hand pizzicato techniques. It's as if these 24 caprices are saying, "Do you dare to try me?" Among them, the 24th Caprice, its theme and variations, has become not only a touchstone for violinists, but also an endless source of inspiration for countless music masters. The piano virtuoso Franz Liszt famously transcribed it into a stunning piano version, while Brahms and Rachmaninoff also crafted deeply moving works based on its melody. Rachmaninoff's Rhapsody on a theme of Paganini took the melody to entirely new heights. Additionally, great composers such as Tchaikovsky, Rubinstein, and Roger Sessions have all drawn from this theme to create their own romantic masterpieces. Paganini's hands were truly astonishing, especially long, flexible, and supple, almost as if they were tailor-made for the violin. Some scholars speculate that he might have suffered from rare genetic disorders like Marfan syndrome or Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, conditions that cause extraordinary joint flexibility. This could explain how he effortlessly played intervals and complex fingerings that ordinary musicians could barely reach. He was also very tall and slender, with long, thin limbs and deep-set eyes. When he stood on stage, he seemed to emerge from the shadows, exuding a mysterious and somewhat eerie aura. This unique appearance, combined with his extraordinary violin skills and stage presence, made him a legend, but also the source of countless ghost stories and mysterious legends. People said his music came from another world, and he himself was like a ghostly violinist summoned from the darkness, forever lingering in the mysterious atmosphere of classical music. Paganini completely overturned the established image of a performer. Before him, musicians were mostly seen as mere extensions of composers, like carriers of notes, with all creativity attributed to the composer. But starting with him, performers were no longer supporting roles. They became the stars on stage, drawing society's full attention and even being mythically revered. He pioneered the concept of the solo recital, making the soloist the true soul and focus of the entire performance, rather than just part of an orchestra's background. Paganini also emphasized the visual aspect of the stage. His black cloak, flowing hair, and the flickering candlelight created a mysterious and dramatic atmosphere, making the audience feel like they were not just listening to music, but watching a magical show. On the commercial front, he sparked a wave of industrialization in the music world by charging for performances and using tactics like gifting violins for promotion, greatly enhancing both his name and the value of his music. What's even more remarkable is that he insisted on integrating performance and composition. He didn't simply play others' works, but composed his own pieces, fully infusing them with his personal style. Paganini's virtuosity wasn't just about flaunting finger agility and speed. He transformed technique into a release of emotion and an expression of personality, making every performance a storytelling experience that left audiences deeply moved and amazed. Because of this, he didn't just rewrite music history. He redefined what it means to be a performer. Imagine if Paganini traveled through time to the modern day. He wouldn't just be a traditional musician. He'd probably be that musical genius on YouTube with millions of subscribers, fingers flying over the strings, not only performing classics, but also creatively remixing pop elements, attracting countless fans who eagerly like and share his videos. On Instagram, his short videos would likely go viral, combining classical violin with magical finger techniques and captivating visuals that keep viewers glued to the screen. He'd be the trendsetter transforming classical music into a new wave of magic tricks, inspiring a whole new generation to fall in love with the violin. Coupled with his incredible charisma on tour, Paganini would definitely be the ultimate global sensation, selling out every concert instantly. He'd blend classic and contemporary styles flawlessly, crossing generations and cultural boundaries, turning music into not just art, but a nationwide celebration. With just one violin, he'd masterfully play between classical and pop, creating an entirely new musical empire. If you're deeply captivated by Paganini's story, don't forget to hit subscribe and share it with your friends who love music and history. Feel free to leave a comment below telling us which part of Paganini's legendary life you like the most, or which classical maestro's biography you'd like us to explore next. Your support is our greatest motivation to create more content. Share this video and let more people experience Paganini's unparalleled musical charm. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next episode.